I want to talk about how I think as a culture we tend to idealize people that are kind of at the top of their hierarchies in the sport they play or the field that they're in. Like we really tend to think that people have the perfect lives, and I want to ask you if there's with such a prestigious resume, have you ever had a time where you felt lost or you've been told you can't do something or anything along those lines where you're kind of at a lower level and you have to find your path again?
Yeah, that's a great question, deep question. Yeah, I think there's just such a common, like, it's one of the tough things with the new age, social media and everything is like the perception of people seems so great. Um, like all the Instagram photos and the videos, like everyone just sees the positives because why would you like you want to brand yourself and post like good things, you want good content.
Hmm.
Um, but I think everyone's got stuff going on and dealing with things. So I would say this year has just been it's been an amazing year, like so many great opportunities and so many cool blessings. But it was a tough year for sure too, like just mentally. Um, um, like back like the way the season ended in 2020 and just kind of the uncertainty of the world really in the summer, and then like being married and like having feeling that responsibility as a husband now, um, and then switching gears and playing volleyball as a job, not just it was technically a job at school, but like actually playing for money and having a little bit more pressure with that and wanting to do well in that and being in a good league. I think there was just a lot of different like new stressors in life. So there's for sure some times where I would come back after practice and I would just be like, just so frustrated or like feel terrible. Like I know what I need to do to be a better player, but I'm not doing it. And I found myself kind of molding everything together. And um, I'd be at home and I would be thinking like, oh man, I got to be better, do this better at volleyball. But then I'd be at volleyball and I'd be like, oh man, I just want to be at home and like being a good husband and hanging out with Sam. So just figuring out how to separate the two, I think was big, and kind of have like, okay, volleyball is volleyball. I'm going to sure do what I need to do at home, like stretch a bit and watch some video. But if I'm not doing that, I'm like not thinking about it. And then but when I'm there, I'm gonna be like fully dialed in. I'm gonna like get my stretches in, get my warm up in, and journal there and stuff. So I would say just for me, that was a tough part of the year. Was just learning how to separate the two,
Hmm.
um, and really that was my one of my biggest lessons I think in the beginning of this season at least. Um, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah. How do you think that you created that boundary? Because so often I think that people become so infatuated with a particular part of their life that becomes like the entire pillar of their life rather than having like a pillar of family and a pillar of work and athletics and whatever presence you want, but you're basically building this house and you have these foundations. And so I do think that a lot of people tend to over overbuild one pillar, and then once that pillar crashes, then the rest of their house crashes. But how did you find a way to start to break those up and say, okay, this is volleyball, this I'm not going to be a fanatic all the time about volleyball, and
Mhm.
like when I go home I'm going to be with Sam and I'm going to be like Eric, not volleyball Eric. I'm going to be
Mhm.
family Eric rather than always
Mhm.
being in that mode. What were some tools that you used to find that space?
Yeah, I think just a lot of truth to what you said there with the foundations, um, and like identity and stuff. And I think it was just kind of coming to grasp that I'm not like this is a big change for me. Like I'm not gonna be the best at volleyball. Like I'm not gonna I can't pull my worth from how I'm doing on the court. Like I can pour what I have into it, but I can't like pull my happiness from that. And back to what we talked about earlier with kind of just like stepping away from everything and like working on more of my spiritual foundation too. Like having like my spiritual foundation as a pillar, I think really helped my like career pillar and my family pillar um, just kind of grow and not almost like keep those down and not let those take over one another, and really keep everything in balance. Um, I think, yeah, just like, and then like communicating that with Sam too, because like we're now living together overseas. It's just us over here. It's a lot of time together. So I think that was like figuring out like, okay, like when I get up, like I need like an hour to do my own thing. And then we'll like have breakfast and play crib or something.
Hmm.
And she's like, okay, cool. Because it was kind of working out to be like, we'd hang out together all the time. And then I'd be at practice and she would get kind of some alone time. But then I'd come back and then we'd hang out. And I was like really not getting any time just for my own thoughts and like kind of stepping away from everything. So just like communicating through that was, I think, really big. And like you said, like making sure that like other areas of my life are being planted versus just focusing it all on one, because if if you focus it all on one, then it all just kind of can come crashing down. So
Hmm.
yeah, those are some strategies we use.
Yeah. How do you, like, for me, I'm someone that's super agreeable, so I constantly have to push myself to say no to things and to have difficult conversations. Like, I'm a total people pleaser.
Oh,
And
same.
how do you, yeah, how so I'm interested in how you start that conversation, because that's such a tough conversation to have, even though I think that it, maybe it shouldn't be, but it is
Mm,
a tough conversation to say, hey, I don't feel like I have enough time to myself. Like,
right.
I think that for me, when I've had to draw that line with people, it makes me feel as if I'm like pushing them away and down, rather than like, hey, I need to build myself as well, and I can't
Hmm.
be with you all the time. I need to, like, I need
Hmm.
time for me. And I find that's a difficult conversation to initiate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge people pleaser, um, and it's so tough too because like I want to be a good man. Like I want to be like there and like always supportive and all this stuff. But I think it came down to like okay, like if I want to be my best, I need to do this. And something that I think I learned from a young age was just it's always better to talk about it like right away versus like putting it under the rug, because then it's just going to build up and then maybe cause something bigger than needed to happen.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of the saying that like put the flame out when it's small, like don't let it turn into a forest fire.
Right.
So yeah, just like having that conversation maybe when it's a little bit hard is better than having it when it's like, okay, I'm just exhausted or like super frustrated, or because I'm so exhausted, I'm gonna like maybe be more angry than I should be, or
Hmm.
kind of lose my cool. So yeah, just really being conscious of yourself, knowing that it's better to talk about things kind of first and upfront, then even though it may be really hard, is going to benefit you in the long run. And then if I think about it like that, I'm like, okay, I don't want to have that thing happen. Like I'm gonna just do it now. Like gotta man up basically. So
Hmm.
that's kind of my strategy with it.
Yeah. There's this really cool, I would say he's a philosopher kind of, but also a psychoanalyst. That was what he mainly was, but I think that he ties lots of things with spirituality and religion and um, psychology. And he has this idea of the shadow, where if there are these things that we kind of put to the side,
Hmm.
and there are things that we don't acknowledge about ourselves and the environment around us, and if we don't acknowledge those things, then they just continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh yeah.
And Stephen Hawking talks about it in his book A Brief History of Time, where he says, if you like, it takes lots of effort to maintain a home or a room,
Hmm.
and to make something look good, like you have to paint a room, but if you step away from the room and you leave it for a year, then the whole house is going to slowly become consumed by all of these things that you're going to have to fix later, and it's going to take way more time than if you just maintain it. And that's the this concept of entropy, is that everything is in a state of chaos. It's moving towards chaos. Things don't move towards order without effort.
Oh man, I think that's so true. Yeah, I think that just honestly applies to everything.
Hmm.
Um, Even to something as simple as like doing the dishes. Like
Yeah.
if you don't do them, they'll just keep piling up, and then you won't want to do them even more, and then eventually you're not going to have a clean plate to eat on, and
Yeah.
then it's going to be like an hour of work just to eat
Hmm.
something like that. But